Welcome back, everybody, to the Successful Events Podcast. I don't know if you guys have been able to tell, but I've actually cut back some on my guest episodes. I've been doing a lot more solos, but this individual, which I don't even know why I'd start doing that. And I'm like, wait, the person's sitting here and I'm staring at you. But we have Christina Luna back on the podcast today, and I'm really hoping that we could start seeing you more, honestly, Christina, because you've just been such a light in my life. And this almost like mentor on the side, we were just talking about this, how you're not really ever on a call like this with me. This is the first time we've gotten live on a call in like 6 months, but I feel like it through our videos and the quarterly readings. But I'm just so grateful for you. And there's just been a lot happening, I think, energetically in the world. And I just have felt called recently to start bringing this to people's awarenesses more and more. And I shared with you, and I've had so many of you listening in reach out to me that the episode I released with her back in February like touched you and really opened your eyes and brought this awareness that you really weren't like aware of. And it just brought this to light. So, Christina, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored and welcomed, and it's every time I get an opportunity to drop into a community and share, I know that something magical can happen from this, that it's going to catalyze so much more co-creation between us and between anyone who's listening. So thank you so much again for inviting me back.
Of course. Like I said, hopefully we're going to just keep you coming back more and more. I still think back to the first time I invited you and you're like, "Well, I told myself this year I have to say yes to every opportunity I get." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'm going to keep asking you till you tell me no." But I'm excited. I know this because I've been getting quarterly readings from you now twice. I got my second one about 6 weeks ago when we were recording this episode. And the last few weeks, and I just want to start here because the last few weeks have been, I feel like, heavy. There's just been a lot of astrologically things going on and moving, and it's been this constant. So I don't know if you can summarize it well, but I'd love to like touch on maybe some of the big things in the last really 2 to 3 weeks that people should be aware of maybe what was happening, why were they feeling certain ways throughout their day and throughout their weeks.
Of course. Yeah. So I think we may have spoken about this. There are people who, well, I would say there are about four types of beings that people really, um, how do I want to say this? I'm not trying to typecast people, but there are elements. There's four elements, and some people are fire people, and some people are water people, and some people are earth people, and some people are air people. And depending on what kind of person you are, it depends on how you experience certain transits, because the last couple of months have been deep water months. They've been very, very, very mysterious, ephemeral, spiritual, emotional, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So, water people and spiritual people have been swimming in the unconscious, and they've been free falling into surrender, and they've been, releasing all of their, past and burdens and wounds and all these things. So for some people, the last few months have just been absolute fairy heaven, spiritual heaven. And for some people, like fire people, they felt like all of their energy and their motivation and their drive and the things that they are passionate about, the swords of truth that they carry in front of them as they light their path in their pioneering ways, they have felt in some ways that that has been stifled probably since last September. Probably there's been
Hmm.
a sensation since last September that it's like, why can't I just cut through this forest of mud and grief? Like, what's going on, right? I must be doing
Yeah.
something wrong. So fire people might not be having the same kind of experience as water people. And then you have air people who are like, well, what does it all mean? And they've been reading and listening to podcasts and going to coaches and trying formulas and, just analyzing everything that they possibly can to see if they can possibly learn something from this slow emotional time. And a lot of times, air people will use their intellect to overcome emotional depth and um, yeah, stickiness sometimes is how they experience it.
Mhm.
And then you've got your earth people, and earth people have probably felt as though um, the moisture has gotten all the way deep into the soil and uncovered tap roots from their past that they finally have been able to pull out of the garden so that they can till the
Mm.
soil and prepare for the next seeding and planting. And so there's a lot of different ways that the last couple of months could have felt. And if you can identify which one of those you are, I will tell
Mhm.
you that the energy is about to shift to a fire season. It's about to shift to a really clear, passionate fire loves. I have this beautiful metaphor for fire. One time I didn't make this up. Someone was burning wood around a campfire and saying that it's so interesting that wood absorbs all of this light and it brings all of the light and stores it into its tissue, and fire releases all the light at once. And so you're seeing this heat and this light as the light from the sun is being released. And so we're going to have a period of time where all of the incubation we've been doing, all of the depth is about to be ignited, and then a lot of brilliant light is going to
Mhm.
be brought into our lives. And light illuminates things. It helps us to see things that were sort of mysterious, sort of hidden, sort of ephemeral, intangible. Like this period of time has been increasing our faith in the unseen. But the really cool thing is when we step into a fire time, we don't need to have faith anymore because we can see it and touch it and it's real. And so we're moving into a time where all of that reality is about to be held in our hands and we get to do
Mhm.
something with that. So there'll be no more disillusionment, no more if you have a tendency to like sugarcoat things or have rose-colored glasses, those will be completely burned off. And hopefully, with this extra light, the different elements are going to be able to sprout whatever it is that they've been incubating for the last 6 months or so.
I love this. I can feel that too. So, just real quick, if somebody doesn't know if they're like fire, air, where can they look in the chart or how can they determine that? Is there a way?
Yeah, there is a way. So it's not as simple as, I mean, we're all very complex. We've got a recipe of all kinds of things. If you're having a soup, you don't just want a hot soup. You want a soup that has some savory, some salty, a little sweet, acid. So all of us are a really beautiful blend, but some of us have more forward-facing dispositions. And
Mhm.
so you could look at your rising sign. Your rising sign is going to give you kind of how you feel your way through your life. You can look at your sun sign. Of course, that's the easiest one. Your
Yep.
sun sign, and I'm talking about astrology now. There are four elements in astrology, which I've just mentioned, and every single sign embodies one of those elements. And there's also ways that those elements move in the world. There's three different movements you can say. And
Mm.
so I don't know if you want me to get into the minutiae of that, but if you look at your sun sign, you can kind of determine what kind of element you are. If you look at your rising sign, you can determine that. But also if you have a lot of planets in a certain element, you might
Mm.
find that you have a stronger tendency toward a certain element.
Okay. That's good. That's what I assumed. Like I was sitting there as you were talking and like as you were explaining, like I'm a Taurus sun. So like Earth is my sun, but then I'm Leo rising, which I think is Leo fire. Is that correct?
Leo
Yeah.
is fire.
Okay, yeah. So as you were talking, I was thinking like, man, yeah, I'm not a water. That's not me. I'm not. It has not been that way the last few months, not since September. So as you were talking, I was like, yep, I'm feeling like all those things. I've been digging. I've just the motivations, like what's going on. And it's exciting because we're about to go into fire. Like I'm starting to see this momentum. So as like the energy's been shifting, and it's been really nice to like start to feel the shift happen. And I know like with your quarterly readings, you do such a good job breaking it down, obviously, for like me specifically and anyone that you're doing it for. But it was like I've been in that waiting, and I am not the most patient person. You can ask my husband. I am not the most patient person. And I was like, but I'm gonna sit because Christina told me I just have to keep sitting and just being. It's gonna be okay. But it really has given this map. And to like even you just share about that for any of you listening right now. Like sit and just look at your rising, look at your sun, and like see where do you fall into the four elements she talked about. And hopefully that'll kind of help you understand what's been going on the last few months because me personally, it's been a lot.
It has been a lot. It's been a lot for everyone. And it's not just this year among all the years. It's a kind of a bigger year. I don't want to try and get like grandiose. And a lot of astrologers like to use a lot of clickbaity statements, but it truly is kind of an epic year because we've got a couple of the larger outer planets moving they've moved all the way through the entire cycle and they're starting a whole new cycle. So there's a lot of new cycle energy that's going on right now. But every new cycle, if you look at the diagram of the yin yang, it's got like a little tiny tail of the last cycle when have the beginning of the next cycle. And so we definitely have this overlap of kind of grieving and releasing a long cycle. And it's not just a cycle for our personal lives, it's a long soul cycle. It's generational, multidimensional cycle shift. And what it's heralding in is a whole new age of the creator. We've all
Mm,
graduated on some level to a place where we finally understand our worthiness to create our reality. And there have been so many opportunities and tools and experiences that have tried to jar us out of our asleepness. I mean,
mm,
2020 was when it first started, and there was this experience we had where it was like we were given a new bicycle and the bicycle had training wheels on it. We were like, ooh, this is fun. I could ride a bicycle. And then we experienced the training wheels being taken off and we fell down and we went into our
mm,
fear and we started like, oh my gosh, what if I can't ride this bicycle? This is dangerous. My creations can hurt me. I don't know what's going to happen. People faced fears of death, fears of loss of loved ones, fears of loss of jobs, questions about their essentialness, right?
yeah.
And so this was us falling off a bicycle and deciding, am I going to get back on this bike and learn how to really ride it? And we did.
Mm,
We got back on our bicycles and we very sometimes painfully started creating our reality and feeling the consequences of our creations. And
mm,
hopefully, through that process, we started realizing that our unconscious material is creating too. So, a
yeah.
lot of modalities around bringing the unconscious to the conscious so that we could see it and process it and re-examine the mythology that we live our life by. So, that's been
Mm,
the last 5 years preparing us for this time exactly, where the governors
wow.
are off. The governors are off, and we're like manifesting, materializing almost in real time.
Yeah. That's that's incredible to think it started 5 years ago. And like to even think back 5 years ago still blows my mind. And then to think of where we are today. Okay, if you're willing to, I want to live here a second too, because I went to an event last week and someone was talking about the unconscious mind versus the conscious mind and just how the percentages. And that's what something like I even shared with my husband recently and he was blown away. He's like, no way, it's not 95% is subconscious and like unconscious, and only 5% is our conscious mind. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It is like and this is to a point of like it's very much scientifically like proven. There's a lot of numbers behind it. There's a lot of facts, and there's a lot that's I think still not fully obviously known either. But I would like to live here a second because I don't know if anyone listening right now knows a lot about this. And I kind of want to dive into the unconscious mind because I think for me personally, and I'll share this with you, Christina, because we haven't even really gotten to talk much the last few months, but I know a lot of, for me, has been all that working that's been happening in my unconscious mind. And like my conscious is trying to me think that I'm not, doing enough or like that something else should be happening, but it's because there's been a lot happening unconsciously. So I don't know where you would want to dive into in that, but I would love to touch on this a little bit more because to me, this was like, it's a game changer when you realize this.
Yeah, okay. This is exciting to me. I don't know if this podcast will have visual aids, but
I do
I have
YouTube, so yes.
so imagine what is this kind of diagram called? This is a just a grid. It's like
It's an axis, the Y and X axis. I don't know. You'd call it,
XY
yeah.
axis.
Quadrants.
You've got four different quadrants. Now, if you want to follow along at home, get a piece of paper out and draw like a cross, like the XY axis cross on your paper. And at the bottom, write the word dark. And at the top, write the
Mm,
word light. And on the left, write the word uncreated. And on the right, write the word created. Okay. So at
I'm
any
so
given time,
excited right now.
so we got it right. Light, dark, uncreated, created. Okay.
Okay.
Um, sometimes people will use like feminine for the uncreated and masculine
Mm,
for the created. And I don't want to get into like masculine, feminine polarity dynamics, but basically, the reason why they say that is because the feminine has the ability to desire what is not created yet, and the
mm,
masculine loves to label what is created.
okay.
And so, in some ways, what is created is kind of abstracted and known, and what is uncreated is pure potential. So, we have this diagram, and at any given time, we are somewhere in one of these quadrants. There's like if you draw a big circle in the center, we put our consciousness at any point. So I've got a circle. We
Mm,
put our focus on any one of these quadrants at any given time. The further you go down in the uncreated dark, the further you go into the unconscious, subconscious.
mm,
And that is a space where you don't have tangible proof of it. It's the place of pure potential faith. It's the space of like it's where all the magic can happen, but it's also kind of where we put things that we don't want to look at, where we put things that are yeah, but that dark uncreated space, that is where all the magic can happen. And
mm.
so it's a place of deep uncertainty. We can actually like draw like a little line away into that corner. There's uncertainty there.
Okay.
And you can draw a line off to the other side where it's light and created as absolute certainty. So now I've got uncertainty down here in the dark, uncreated, and we've got certainty way up here. So the cool thing about our brains is that whew, the amount of miracles and magic and graceful change, the amount of that we can experience is directly related to how much uncertainty we can tolerate.
Mm,
Because if we only want certainty, we can only experience things that are conscious to us that have already been created. And a lot of people live right there. And so we end up creating the same thing over and over and over. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's something beautiful about having consistency in our reality. But when we go through times of great water cycles, we're especially navigating into this dark, uncreated space. And
okay.
that can feel a little uncomfortable for people. It's the place where you could lose control
Hmm. Yeah.
because you're losing your certainty.
And
And
that's
so
scary.
it's scary. And that's why we call it, that's why we're afraid of the dark. That's why historically we've been
Mm.
afraid of the feminine principle, because it's the edge of chaos where anything can happen. And
Oh.
so the last 6 months has been trying to get us in touch with our our ability to tolerate that dark, uncreated reality because now that we're stepping into more light, what we actually have the potential to do now is hang out over in this quadrant, the quadrant of uncreated light. We can become aware, light, of what is not created yet. That's the dream. That's the vision.
Mm.
That's the beautiful um, hopes and dreams that we've never experienced before. And if we can get more uncomfortable with the dark uncreated, we can actually get a good relationship with the uncreated and bring things from down here up to here.
This is incredible. Like getting to see this on paper. So I hope you're following along or go over to YouTube and watch this so you can see what Christina's doing as well. Because I've been drawing it out as we've been going to like on my sheet. And it's
Yeah.
so true. And the reason I share this is because of my own experience the last 6 months. And I think it's kind of what I even said at the beginning before we hit record today is like I'm leaning into like not having a full plan and like knowing that there's a lot of unknown right now. And it's been really scary for somebody, myself, who is I'm a planner. I want everything organized. I want to know what's happening in the next few weeks, few months. Having to step into that uncreated, like don't really know what's going to happen area has been hard.
Well,
And
part of what, yeah, like we haven't even talked about the created dark. That's
gosh,
part of the reason why it's so hard.
yeah.
It's hard is there have been things that we created that we're conscious of, or there have been things that we've created that we're unconscious of. Sorry. We are primarily unconscious of how much of our life we've actually created.
Mm,
This is the area that rules blame, projection, like karmic contracts. Like anytime we thought that we didn't have creative control over our experiences, this is where like the victim archetype lives. And hey, listen, that 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 archetype is actually an archetype that we learned how to befriend. Because
mm,
if we decide to deny that archetype, we actually throw it deeper into the dark created quadrant of the field. The more that we don't want to face the truth of what we are conscious of, the more that gets stored down here. And that's what
mm,
everyone's really afraid of. That's where the resistance comes from. People think that they're afraid of the uncreated dark, but what they're really afraid of is the created dark that they don't want to look at. And
mm,
these are old feelings about this is like the emotional realm that's linked to past memories.
mm.
It's like the place where trauma lives.
Yeah.
Um, but the cool thing is when we go into this place and we actually let ourselves be more conscious of that created reality, it brings it all up here. As soon as we become conscious of it, it pulls things from down here and pulls it up here. And the more energy we can have in the created light, the more proofs we have to bring the uncreated light over to the created. So we get to pull, this is like a source of energy that
Mm.
pulls the energy up and draws the uncreated into reality.
I love that. And it makes so much sense because, like you said, what you're doing is you're building the trust. I
Yeah,
think
the proof.
in the proof, yeah, you need that. And that's even where when I try to talk and share with people what I've been going through and what I'm doing and how I've gotten to the point I am now, because I am a very different person than I was definitely a year ago, but I am a very different person than I was 3 months ago because unconsciously there has been a lot going on that is just now starting to come in forwards where because I've started to work that muscle building the proof and bringing things to light that I knew I needed to, but it was like that scary fear of like bringing it to light. I mean, the best example I'll give right now is around events. Like I have had the realization that events are not just like I'm not just an event expert. I am more than that. And I had that first realization in February, and I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, great, but like, what does that mean? But I didn't have that answer till 2 months later. But it was like that was the first awareness of realizing I'm not just an event expert, I'm more than that. And then unconsciously, my mind has been working through whatever it's needed to work through. But it was scary having the realization, but it was proof like that's been there and working through its whole time. And like, who knows what else might be sitting there that you need to just work through. But building the proof, that's where the trust is built in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because once we can anchor into these tangible proofs that we've done this before, we've faced this before, we've crossed this threshold before in smaller micro doses, then it gives us the courage to have the faith to know, well, if that's the cycle that I've experienced before, then this could be the cycle that I experience next. It's it's kind of a double-edged sword though, because if the focal point is on all of the times that it didn't go well, or just the flavor of it not going well, even though it actually, usually every event has ways that it went well and ways that it could have been better. And
Mhm.
our focal point in that spectrum determines the story that we're telling about the event itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more time we have for this podcast, but I've got so many. I just need to be creating a podcast too. I either need to be on your
Yes, you
podcast a
do.
lot. I need to be creating my own podcast because honestly, this is the thing I get the most excited about is just sharing the way that our perception and our reality is shaped through our focal point.
Let's dive into the perception side then, because I know you have an entire framework around it. And you were saying like this is all leading up to now perceptions. So I can't wait to learn this. I already have my Y and X axis written out. I'm like, okay, let's dive into like more frameworks now.
Okay. Well, part of the reason why it's so important to recognize how we're creating our reality and how our perception and how our focal point and our values are influencing our actions is because we are in a time where everything is tangibly manifesting faster and more immediately than ever before. Like I said, because we've taken the governors off, we've been trained over the last long cycle to see the correspondence between our beliefs, our vibration, our frequency, and the experience of any kind of circumstance that we encounter. So now that we've got that, what if we had a way to slow down the process and really find where most of the power is to influence that experience? So I would love for you, if you've got paper in front of you, get a piece of paper and draw a ladder with 6 rungs on it. It should look something like this when you're done. A ladder with six rungs. And imagine that this ladder is, well, how deep do I want to get? This ladder is laid over our body, actually. You can tie this to the energy centers, the chakra centers, any maps that you're already familiar with, you can lay this over it, and it might help you to integrate this map even more fully into your experience. Well, once you get this ladder of 6 rungs, I want you to imagine that, let's start with how it all starts. There's usually some kind of physical stimulus, some kind of trigger. Someone says something to you, you hear a noise. There's you get an email. There's something that comes into your awareness, and we're going to label the very first part of the cycle, the very bottom rung of this cycle. We're going to actually label that serpent, because I want you to imagine that instead of jumping immediately to what you think the stimulus means or what story you're telling about it, you're going to start by imagining that you're a snake and you're really close to the ground and you're feeling the reverberation of that stimulus, or you're seeing it for what it literally is. Like if you hear someone say something, you're hearing noise coming out of a mouth of a person sounding a certain way. There's no story here. There's no meaning at all. And so I would like everyone to kind of imagine the last really big stimulus that triggered a pretty strong response inside of you. So if you can get something like that in your mind, maybe someone honked at you on the freeway, maybe you got cut off. Driving ones are always really easy because everyone's had those experiences. Um, and instead of writing down what you think that that stimulus meant, just write down what it actually felt like. Was it a loud noise? Was it a ding on your phone? Were there a bunch of squiggly like words on a screen that you saw? So write down just if a snake was literally looking at it and describing it, how would they describe it? And the cool thing about serpents is that they're very instinctual. This is the reptilian part of our brain. It it just gives our nervous system a response. And so the next ring of the ladder is what that nervous system response actually feels like. And I want you to imagine for a minute that now you're a jaguar and you're covered with fur and you're super sensitive. And you can tell at any part of your body that something is touching it or stimulating it, or the hairs go up on your back, or you get this instinct without any meaning. I want you to describe what a jaguar would feel if it was observing this experience, the stimulus. And that's the second ring on the ladder. So this would be like, oh, the jaguar's stomach contracted. All of its fur like raised up. Its yeah, nervous system went on to alert. So after you get a few descriptors of how it tangibly, somatically felt in your body, you're going to take that and you're going to give it to the next ring. And the next ring is kind of a somatic report. And that somatic report is given to a hummingbird. And hummingbirds are these beautiful small little birds that have an infinity pattern in their wing flight pattern, and they can fly forward, backward, up and down through every plane of time. And so when you give the hummingbird this somatic report, the hummingbird goes into every single file that you have on every single experience you've ever had in your life. And it says, well, based on the stimulus and the somatic sensation, the files that match that have these labels on them. So let's say we got honked at on the freeway, okay? Serpent was like, what was that? Jaguar goes, whoa, are we in danger? Jaguars, all of the haunches, are we in danger? Is someone like, what's going on? So all of this alert, and then it sends the file to Hummingbird, and Hummingbird says, do you remember when you were 8 years old and someone honked at your dad when he was driving and he said that that guy was an a-hole and he put his arm out the window and told that guy what was up? Do you remember that? And so Hummingbird finds that file. And then it finds the file when you were 16 and you just started driving and you were not paying attention to the stoplight and someone behind you honked and you got super flooded with shame because you knew you were a new driver. That file gets pulled up too. Every single file that includes any kind of car honking in any movie you've ever seen, all of those files are brought to the surface, in addition to whatever you observe around you. Was that a female driver? Was it a male driver? Was it an old person, a young person? We pull all the files on all the profiles of the people that we've had experiences with too. So Hummingbird comes with this huge stack of files. Whew, wow, that was heavy, and it does it so fast, and it brings the entire stack of files to the next ring on the journey, who is an eagle. So Eagle takes a look at the entire file, opens up her wings, and she says, I am I'm the one that holds all of your values. I tell you what you truly value when it comes to your life, your identity, how you relate to people, the kind of person you want to be perceived as. And I'm going to read these files and I'm going to help you understand what this really means. So if you've got a value that you're a person of integrity and you're an excellent driver, and the other people are the problem because they don't know what they're doing or whatever. If you've got this value system that tells you that you're the good person and you never make mistakes, then Eagle is going to create a meaning and write an action plan. So
Mm.
Eagle, takes an inventory and decides, like, basically identity is one of the strongest values that we have. So, however you identify yourself as a person, that's going to have a lot of influence on the way Eagle decides what's going on here. So,
Mm.
Eagle says, this is what this means. That person wasn't even honking at you. Who knows? That person, like, I'll tell you what my Eagle says. You don't know what that person's going through. They could have just had a loss in their family. Maybe they're super distracted. Maybe they haven't eaten breakfast. Maybe they're running late. Maybe they can't stand their job. This has nothing to do with you, honey. You're just a person in their world and they're going to pass and you can forget all about this. And so Eagle tells me what I believe and sends the report to the next ring of the ladder, which in in South American medicine shamanism, that is a character called Quetzalcoatl, but we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to call this the action make taker because I'm not going to get too esoteric in this conversation. The action taker decides what to do.
Mm.
And that's why Eagle's assessment of the file is so important because there's so many actions I could take. I could I could I could decide that that person's a bad driver and chase them down and tell them what I think about them being a bad driver. I could just keep driving and being chill, turn my music up and start singing. Like there's so many things I could do, right? So
Mm.
whatever I choose to do is going to affect whatever I observe that happens next. So let's say I just turn my music up and I just keep rolling. The observable outcome is the result of my actions. So the
Mm.
observable action is the next ring. And the observable action is probably going to be aligned and prove what I deeply believe about myself.
Mm.
And so let's say I turn the music up, I keep driving, other drivers are super chill, and that person that honked at me goes up in front of me and they disappear from my world. They didn't matter. And I get to keep rolling and I take that proof of a beautiful drive on the freeway and my day's been beautiful. I'm having a beautiful day. So the honking was inconsequential.
Mm.
Now, of course, I could be mad. I could chase that guy. I could like try to, I'm saying guy because you can find my biases here. The last time someone honked at me, it was actually a girl. So let me just say, like, um,
There you go.
there's coming from and my dad was calling people when I was a kid. But anyways, this is this perception ladder. And the place where we actually can slow the process down the most is when we're sensing in Jaguar what a stimulus actually feels like.
Mm.
When we get a lot of information there, when we can slow down our breath and, you know, feel um, the feelings without labeling them, we can actually pull a lot of different files from our archive in Hummingbird. If Hummingbird only gets really stressful files, Hummingbird will own or stressful feelings, Hummingbird will only pull stressful files. And it's going to take a really strong identity to override acting from that stressor. If we can slow it down and we can feel like I'm safe in my car, nothing bad is happening. I don't think I did anything wrong. I feel calm in my nervous system. We'll send that somatic report to Hummingbird, and Hummingbird will be like, Yeah, there's been a lot of times people have honked. It has nothing to, they might not have been honking at you. So we'll pull files on that and it will be even easier to send a report to Eagle and keep on driving. But oftentimes when we get triggers that are really somatically overwhelming, we are trying to problem solve that as fast as possible. And so the files we pull are to eliminate the stressor and to find safety and certainty as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So if we took this back to our four-part quadrant, this is a lot. Are we hanging with this?
I love this. Just keep going.
This is like I hope that bringing the animals in helps to connect to these different parts of our brain because we have that reptilian brain, we have the mammalian brain, we've got the prefrontal, we've got the analytical brain, the one that's
Mhm.
like what? It's like a thinking brain, and then we have the prefrontal cortex. It's like, what is my higher value? That sends it to the motor control center. The motor control center actually takes action, and then we get to perceive all over again. I mean, this is all related to different brain functions. A lot of the stimulus and the sensation, it happens in this dark area. A lot of times
Mm.
the feelings are brand new feelings that we've never had experienced before. And we don't even know what they mean. They're in the dark of our experience. It could be acute emotion. All of that is water element stuff. As soon as we take it into air element and we start labeling it with all the files that Hummingbird said, we're trying to pull unconscious stuff up to the light so that we can know and understand. That's air element. So what we usually do is we pull dark, conscious stuff. We think we know what something means. So we pull like, oh man, all the old like bleh. And that bringing that to consciousness, it actually creates a certain thought pattern that we are
Mhm.
consistently going to over and over and over. And it confirms our belief about ourselves and humanity. So
Yep.
we keep confirming and confirming and confirming. But if we want to experience something new, we might sit with the emotion and understand this is the first time I've felt anything like this before. If we can say that, then we don't pull old files. We become curious.
Mm.
And curiosity is the key to experiencing something new.
Curiosity has become a big word that I've been using recently. And I
Yeah.
love how you explained all of that, though. Like bringing I do agree the animals bring something to it to help you walk through the process. And then realizing, seeing it now on the chart and the connection of it all, I do have to come back to, well, it's this, but come back to something that came up for me in the events world because you listening, a lot of you host events or in the events world, or you're just connected to me in some way. And we all host our own events. I always say too, because you always have parties and gatherings that you're hosting in your home. Um, but it comes back to those little things. Like immediately, one of my first thoughts was like getting that email from a vendor. It's like your caterer. It's because literally this is top of my mind right now for a current client. It's like you get the email from the caterer and they say, oh, I'm having some logistical issues or something right now. And your mind jumps to any experience you've had before. And it's like all the stress and everything. And I'm not going through this. My host is going through it, who I'm supporting right now. And I sat there and I saw the email. And because of me, and I think because I've learned to stop and slow down and like realize, is this really an issue? What information do I even have right now? What's the action that I can take? And for me, she jumped straight into, oh my gosh, I have to start planning like plan B. She's not going to pull through. She's not going to show up next week. I went, well, I'm going to reach out to her and just ask if she can elaborate more because we don't even know what's going on. And no, I didn't get in touch with her for 2 days, but she's still following up with me. We're communicating. We still have a whole week. But it's like those things that perception, the difference in just me and her seeing the same thing and our reactions to it. She jumped to like, oh my gosh, it's an issue. And I went, oh, I need more information. I'm not worried yet, type thing. I mean, it's just so literally that's what was going through my brain as you were breaking down this entire framework.
Yeah. And your sensory perception was one level removed from the risk. And so you didn't feel it as acutely as your host.
Hmm.
And so she's closer to the risk and closer to catastrophe, right? So she's feeling that more, but you are so valuable in that relationship because you've had this is not your first rodeo. You have a lot more references and files. Plus, you weren't in the same kind of risk state that she was in. So
Hmm.
you were able to pull different files of meaning, which also lends to curiosity because your nervous
Hmm.
system wasn't immediately contracted. And so with your curiosity, you're able to hold open a space for different things to come through. And your value system is based on helping to hold the certainty and the clarity that these events are guided by a higher force than just willpower and chance. There's something governing these events for all involved. And you probably hold a value in your system, which is why you care so much about helping people facilitate their events. And
Yeah.
so you hold that while people are in the new process of event planning, they're still building their belief stack that things will go well. They're still
Mhm.
building their faith that there's a higher power or a higher calling for these events. And they'll have experiences, enough of them eventually, that they won't necessarily need to borrow some of your faith and your assuredness.
Mhm.
But that's how we can actually co-create with others or co-regulate with others.
Mm, that's beautiful. I love how that all comes together. Oh my gosh, Christina, this was incredible. This was amazing. I love the breakdown of really seeing the unconscious versus the conscious mind and how all that flows tied into the perception framework. I I always love these conversations with you, and I'm just again so grateful to have you on here. I do want you to like give you a few minutes just to like tell people how can they connect with you if they're interested at all in working, if there's any opportunities to kind of work with you. But I hope you will come back on the podcast again. I seriously love these episodes. And yeah, I'm gonna let the like leave the floor to you on how can they connect with you and how could they work with you if they're interested.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have, like you mentioned, the quarterly readings. I feel like I have to cap those. I feel like I have
Mhm.
space for 10 more max this year for this quarterly cohort.
Mm.
So if you're a kind of person that would love to get personalized guidance, reach out to me. I'm going to be closing the window on that around the 24th of April. So that'll be like no more new quarterly clients until November of, of this year. So if that's something, if you want to reach out for me to me on that, contact me on Instagram and we'll get that set up for you. Otherwise, just follow me on Instagram and I provide more in-depth readings, like live 2-hour readings for people who want to kind of map out their elements and their recipe. All of that, you can find that on my website, but the best place to find me is on Instagram. So
Yeah. You've got some really good posts. You do, if you're like when you go follow her, it's so fun to see. She's literally like in time as astrology's happening. It's like every 1 to like 3, 4 days, I feel like you're posting on there and sharing things with all the stuff that's happening. So, yes, please go give her a follow, connect with her. There's only, like she said, till the 24th, and this episode will come out very close to that mark. So if you hear it after April 24th, just know she potentially would have spots open as of like November, end of this year. So make sure you connect. But again, I'm so grateful for you. This was incredible. If you are listening and you actually drew out like the Y and X axis and you actually have worked your way through the perception ladder and framework that Christina took us through, please share with us. Like, post a story with the episode, tag us in a photo, or even just shoot both of us or one of us a DM. I love to hear when people are like actually taking and integrating these things. So please share with us. And again, thank you so much, Christina.
thank you so much. I can't wait till next time.
Me too. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're tired of searching for the right events to attend, I've got something special for you. I've created the Preferred Events Calendar. It's your exclusive time-saving guide to personal and professional development events, industry opportunities, and top networking experiences across the entire U.S. No more guessing where to show up or missing out on some key connections that maybe you don't know about. Get the calendar through the link below in the show notes and start finding the events that align with your goals for this year. And if you are hosting your own event, you can even add it to the calendar too. Shoot me a DM through Instagram. That way, if you're interested, I can send over the information. I'll see you next time.